Joe, Q, Sal, and Mur did a great deal of hilarious challenges and pranks, and while each and every one of them made us laugh or cringe, some were crazier than others, and today we're gonna check out 8 of them, so stay tuned. For one of the punishments, Joe and Q had to join the Marching Cobras of New York for their halftime show. Joe immediately wanted to know in front of how many people they have to perform, and Sal was happy to quickly inform him that there were several thousand people. Even though the numbers certainly didn't ease their fears, Joe and Q dressed up, and when the Marching Cobras entered the court during halftime, the guys clumsily infiltrated them and tried to blend in. Soon enough the performance started, and it was clear that the punished jokers had no clue what to do, as they simply couldn't follow the rhythm. Nevertheless, they kept doing their best and obviously started enjoying the punishment more than they were supposed to, as they really let loose and even engaged in a drum battle. Even though that was supposed to be the end of the punishment, the craziest part of the punishment was yet to come, so Mur informed them they are going to be dancing next, which totally caught them by surprise. Still, Joe didn't let that bring him down, and once the music started, he surprised the audience and the rest of the dancers alike by breaking out in some quite ridiculous dance moves. One of the challenges that took place at a mall food court required each of the jokers to find a secret stranger picked by the rest of the gang. If the person picked by the jokers leaves the food court, however, the joker doing the challenge loses. Mur was the first one up, so he started creeping around the food court, while Q tasked him with shooting obvious evil look in people's faces. After giving a brief demonstration that weirdly reminded of Dramatic Chipmunk, Mur went on with his task, first approaching a random passerby who just shrugged him off. Next up was a random woman eating with a child, and Mur's evil looked startled as she was about to take a bite. Still, after a moment, both the woman and her child started laughing while Joe imitated the sound of the wrong buzzer.
Wrong one, buddy.
Nice try, keep it moving.
Proceeding with his challenge, Mur continued making hilarious faces while engaging people in small talk, only to cut them off midway with his evil look. As he wasn't getting any closer to the man picked by the jokers, Mur just started shooting his hilarious evil look at pretty much everyone nearby until he got close to the mark. Still, instead of looking at the man, Mur focused on the woman next to him, and when the guys informed him that it's not her, he simply gave up. One of Joe's worst punishments was when the other 3 decided to let him try one of Harry Houdini's most famous magic tricks, the Chinese water torture cell.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to lay your eyes upon the greatest escape artist of our time.
They had announced him as the greatest escape artist of our time to the audience before sending him out there, and only revealing what he had to do step by step as he did it. After 2 assistants had to put him into a straitjacket and tied chains around his chest, as well as a rope around his ankles, Joe was lifted up and then lowered into a water tank, looking pretty nervous and almost losing his cool at this point. As opposed to the actual trick, Joe still had his head above water, but since he had no idea how the trick worked, he obviously couldn't get out of the straitjacket and the audience started laughing. Joe then apologized to them, saying that he just couldn't get out of the jacket, and when one person tried to cheer him up, yelling "You can do it," he desperately replied that he really couldn't. As the audience started to leave, Joe looked pretty upset, and when the guys asked if he had to pee, he quietly said,
Just did.
In the second episode of Season 7 titled Guilty as Charged, Q was the loser, and for his punishment, he had to pose as a bouncer at a nightclub, collecting cover charges for a metal band show. Q started off pretty good, but what he didn't know, and what the rest of the jokers revealed to the cameras, was that there were no cover charges and that it was actually a free show. As more and more people entered the club, Q's fanny pack was getting fatter and fatter, and he even started wondering if he was going to get punished at all. When the club got full, the jokers told Q to come back, telling him that he's done. They took the fanny pack with the money and sent him back to the club, adding that he'll know what to do when the time comes. Before the band got on stage, the club announcer addressed the crowd, saying that the show was free and that someone was scamming them at the entrance. The crowd was riled up and immediately cornered Q, demanding their money back while he tried to explain that the money is in the fanny pack and that the fanny pack is somewhere else. People started cursing at him, and when Joe told him that the money's at the bar, he headed there straight away while people threw beer at him. When he finally got to the bar, he found a sack of quarters and had to go around to each and every person and give them their money back, saying that it was a big misunderstanding and that he didn't think that he was gonna get caught. In the 19th episode from Season 7, the guys had a challenge where each of them had to go to a cafe and get a stranger's approval on an email before sending it.
Do you mind if I read this to you? You tell me if it's good to send?
The trick was that each of the ridiculously drafted up emails was written by someone else from the group, and the one going to the cafe didn't know what was written before reading it out loud on the spot. First up was Mur, who tried to act all serious, and when he approached one person and asked him if he was good with words, the guy pointed him to his friend. Soon enough, a group of people was listening to Mur's email addressed to his imaginary friend Marco, in which Mur elaborates on Marco's wife's lack of fashion sense and drabness. Even though he did his best, he didn't get a stamp of approval, and next up was Sal. In his fake email, Sal apologized to his friend for saying the C word in front of his daughter, explaining that he wasn't talking about her, but a different Becky. Furthermore, Sal argued that the C word is his thing right now, and that having an 11-year-old around him when he's off-the-cuff hilarious wasn't the best idea. Even though it was fun to watch Sal go through his email, it wasn't approved, so Joe had his turn. In his email, addressed to his fictional stepmother, Joe spoke about the darkness that was lurking inside her and that she should back off. Needless to say, the stranger thought that it was a little theatrical and he was out. Lastly, Q approached a random woman and read an email addressed to imaginary Dorothy. In the email, he said that he didn't know he was on speakerphone and apologized for a string of curses and for calling her a human push-up bra, with her parents, niece, and pastor sitting in the car with her. Even though the stranger found the email funny, she said that it wasn't good enough to be sent as is, so in the end, Mur ended up being the big loser. In the 24th episode of Season 2, the guys went to Jersey Shore and worked behind the counter of Jimbo's restaurant, taking orders. The goal of the challenge you got served was to do and say what you're told, and once again Joe indirectly messed with the wrong person, which almost resulted in Sal getting the short end of the stick. As Sal was working the counter, a pair approached the restaurant, and as they were making their order, Joe directed Sal to pick up a foot-long hot dog from underneath the counter. While Joe's constant waving of the hot dog freaked out the woman, their order went without an incident. Apparently for Joe it wasn't enough, so when he noticed a mean-looking tattooed man passing by, he ordered Sal to throw a chicken finger right behind him. Sal reluctantly did that, and as the man was turning around looking for the culprit, Sal quickly ducked behind the counter. The angry man then approached the restaurant and, as per Joe's instructions, Sal asked him if he was the one who ordered chicken fingers. When the man explained what happened, Sal played dumb of course, but the guy was having none of it and demanded to see the culprit right now. While Joe told Sal to admit that he did it, Sal was visibly afraid of the guy and said that he will be on the lookout for who did it instead. In the 16th episode of Season 2, titled Down in the Dump, Sal, being the episode's loser, had to live through his worst nightmare as the rest of the gang stole his brand new cell phone and hid it in a huge pile of garbage in a trash barge. The punishment was simple, and all Sal had to do was dig through the garbage containing everything from diarrhea and use diapers to tomato sauce and full gallons of sour milk to find it, which he did. However, while he was doing so, his fellow jokers had the trash barge leave the harbor and depart out to sea with him still on board. As they bid him bon voyage, Sal screamed that he would never forgive them, so they promised to bring the boat back the moment he finds his phone. Without any options, Sal continued digging through the garbage until he finally found his phone. When he tried calling the other jokers to bring the boat back, however, his calls kept being rejected and sent to voicemail. Still, the deleted scenes released by True TV gave us more insight into what happened next, as Q, Mur, and Joe joked that they lost Sal forever. While trapped in the trash barge, Sal tried to talk to the captain. As he shouted long enough for the captain to hear him, Sal was pretty much pissed off that the captain kept waving back at him, so he turned to the filming crew and told them that they had betrayed him. For one of his punishments, Joe had to go to the gym, approach people who were working out, and just stare at them. Obviously, annoying fit people in the gym is never a good idea, but as jokers can't say no to a punishment, Joe went in nonetheless. Acting all super creepy, he was wandering around the gym doing what the other jokers told him to, like sitting on a bench across the guy who was working out and acting disgusted and surprised, leaning into the guy on a treadmill and eating a sandwich in front of the other guys.
No one's confronting him, he's winning.
Things started going south when a young man approached the machine behind which Joe was standing, and when he asked Joe if he was using it, the joker just stared him down. For a few moments, the annoyed young man was deciding what to do, and then aggressively approached Joe asking if he had a problem. When Joe replied, "I don't know," the young man got even more aggressive and even started cursing at Joe. Ultimately, the rest of the jokers told Joe to make a step back, but to continue staring, and luckily, conflict was averted and things didn't get physical. Thank you for checking this video out, and don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe for new videos every day. Turn that bell notification on and comment down below that you subscribed, and we'll make sure to reply and thank as many of you as we possibly can. Once again, thank you for watching and see you next time.